David Parker Ray, the son of Oregonian mechanic Cecil Leland Ray and Texas-born Nettie Opal. Parker Ray was born in Belen, New Mexico, on November 6, 1939. Ray was raised on a tiny ranch by his mother's strict parents, Russell and Dolly Parker. Because of their financial situation, his younger sister, Peggy Pearl Ray, was also raised by them. His abusive and drunk father would occasionally drop by and give him mags full of sadomasochistic images. Being bashful around girls led to him taking alcohol and other drugs at Mountaineer High School in Mountaineer, New Mexico. His peers' bullying of him caused this. In his adolescence, Ray began to acquire erotic fantasies of raping, torturing, and killing women. Ray's sister first saw his obscene paintings of bondage practices and sadomasochistic drawings when he was 14 years old. This caused a rift to develop between Ray and his sister. It is thought that Ray started abusing women while he was a teenager, based on statements he made. On July 23, 1993, Ray made the following assertion on tape. "I've been raping bitches ever since I was old enough to jerk off and tie little girls' hands behind their backs." He even claimed to have murdered and tortured a lady after kidnapping her, tying her to a tree, and killing her sometime in 1957, according to his first wife. But the authorities could not confirm his story. Ray served in the U.S. Army as a general mechanic until being honorably discharged after completing high school. Then, until his arrest, Ray spent his entire adult life in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, as a maintenance worker for the New Mexico Parks Department. There were other local pubs in the resort town, about 5 miles from Elephant Butte, New Mexico, and Ray would frequently visit them looking for victims. The 37-year-old Cindy Hendy, whom Ray met, was on the run from convictions in Washington state for grand larceny and narcotics offenses. She worked at a state campground in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Because of their mutual love for violent sexual fantasies, they fell in love and grew close. The two became partners in crime, as well as in their sexual lives while working together. Hendy was taught by Ray how to abduct and mistreat women, and Ray used her as his collaborator. He went so far as to create an 18-point instruction manual called Psychological and Physical Procedures, Initial Handling of the Captive Personal Fetish, which was affixed to the torture chamber's wall. The building of Ray's torture chamber cost him around $100,000. Ray warned his prisoners that they would also be made to perform sexual services for Hendy in a taped confession from 1993. The daughter of Ray's accomplice, Glenda Jessie Jean Ray, was one of his 2 children. Ray was divorced 4 times. When Cynthia Vigil, the 22 years old, was hooking up in a parking lot in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on March 19, 1999, a man posing as an undercover police officer told her she was under arrest for soliciting sex work and placed her in the back of his car. He took Vigil to a neighboring soundproof trailer that he called his Toybox. The man's name was David Parker Ray. The trailer's table was the object of his chains after that. With assistance from his lover and accomplice, Cindy Hendy, he sexually assaulted and tortured Vigil throughout the course of the following 3 days, tormenting Vigil. Ray and Hendy employed electric shocks, whips, and medical and sexual implements. Ray used to play a tape recording of the torture she would be subjected to right before it started. In the tape, Ray clarified that she was only to address him as master and the woman beside him as mistress, and that she was never to speak unless asked to do so. He continued, detailing in detail how he would assault and sexually assault her. Vigil remarked in a subsequent interview, "The way he talked, I didn't feel like this was his first time." As if he understood exactly what he was doing. There would be no more family reunions, he warned me. In the same way as the others, he threatened to kill me. The keys to Vigil's restraints were inadvertently left on a table close to where Vigil was chained up on the 3rd day, while Ray was at work. Vigil grabbed the chance, releasing her hands and lunging for the keys. Hendy tried to stop her from escaping, but Vigil managed to stab her with an ice pick because of this. Only a slave collar and padlocked chains covered her when she fled the trailer. She went to a nearby mobile home and knocked on the door, desperate. Following Vigil's arrest and the police's discovery of Hendy's numerous heinous crimes, the homeowner phoned the police and brought Ray inside. On the interior wall of the trailer, authorities discovered a placard that said, "Satan's Den. We can comprehend the exact events that transpired inside Ray's house of horrors because of Cynthia, who managed to flag down a passing car and escape." Exactly when Ray started his crime spree is still a mystery. However, the mid-1950s is when it began. Furthermore, it was discovered when Vigil managed to flee. As per True TV, the police promptly got a warrant to examine David Parker Ray's home and trailer after apprehending him for the kidnapping of Vigil. Authorities were astonished and uneasy by what they saw within the trailer. With a mirror fixed to the ceiling so that his victims could view the atrocities inflicted upon them, Ray's Toybox had a gynecologist-style table in the center. Surgery blades, saws, leg spreader bars, straps, clamps, chains, pulleys, and a variety of sex toys were strewn all over the floor. While Ray and his friends were raping their victims, authorities discovered a wooden device that appeared to be used to render the victims immobile. And yet, of all the unsettling information unearthed in the Toybox killer teaser, the most frightening may have been a video recording from 1996 that saw Ray and his girlfriend torturing and raping a terrified lady. A similar account was also provided by a different woman amid the media attention that followed David Parker Ray's arrest for kidnapping Cynthia Vigil. After going to Ray's residence to borrow cake mix, Angelica Montano, one of Ray's acquaintances, was drugged, sexually assaulted, and subjected to psychological torment, then abandoned Montano on a highway in the desert. Although the police had fortunately discovered her alive there, her case had not been pursued further. With drugs like sodium pentothal and phenobarbital, Ray would frequently sedate his victims during torture so that, should they survive, they would not be able to recall the events that transpired. However, the case against the Toybox killer became stronger because both Vigil and Montano were now prepared to testify about Ray's activities. When Ray's girlfriend and collaborator, Cindy Hendy, came under pressure from the police, she swiftly gave in and started telling them all she knew about the kidnappings. Ray was assisted by other persons throughout the kidnappings and rapes, as the authorities learned from her testimony. The two people who helped Ray were his friend Dennis Roy Yancey and his own daughter, Glenda Jessie Ray, and murder occurred in the course of at least a few of these violent assaults. After being kidnapped, drugged, and tortured for days by Ray and his daughter, Marie Parker was finally killed by strangulation by Yancey in 1997. Yancey later acknowledged his involvement in this heinous murder. At least one more woman survived the torture room used by the Toybox killer, despite this horrifying tale and its unsettling implications for David Parker Ray's other unidentified victims. The 1996 videotape that Ray discovered in his trailer showed, surprisingly, the same victim being raped and tormented. The woman in the video was recognized by her ex-mother-in-law as Kelly Garrett after certain information about her became public. Jessie, David Parker, Ray's accomplice, was friends with Garrett. After a heated argument with her ex-husband Patrick Murphy on July 24, 1996, Garrett sought solace by spending the evening drinking pool at a nearby tavern with Jessie. Jessie overcame Kelly after he took her to her father's house. However, Jessie had roofied her beer, and Garrett was ignorant. After a while, Jessie and her father took Garrett to the Toybox killer's trailer and gave her a collar and leash. 2 days were spent there by Ray, torturing and raping her. Subsequently, Ray slashed her neck and left her lifeless on the roadside. The police and her spouse did not accept Garrett's account of how she miraculously survived the vicious attack. Her husband filed for divorce in the same year, thinking she had cheated on him that evening. Garrett knew the Toybox killer had raped her, but the effects of the medications clouded her memory of the events of those 2 days. According to a judge's decision, Ray will face separate trials for the offenses against Cynthia Vigil, Angelica Montano, and Kelly Garrett. The prosecutors claimed this hurt their case because each woman's story would have otherwise supported and validated the other women's accounts. Furthermore, the judge decided that a large amount of evidence, including Ray's audio recording, on which he described in great detail his abduction and torture techniques that had been discovered in the trailer during the 1999 raid, could not be used in the Garrett or Montano trials. When 2 jurors declared that Kelly Garrett's story was implausible, the first trial, which was for crimes against her, ended in a mistrial. As part of his fantasy life, Ray claimed in his defense that the sex trailer was consensual. In a retrial, Ray was found guilty on all 12 charges. Within the first week of his trial for crimes against Vigil, Ray accepted a plea deal. In 2001, he was found guilty of multiple counts of kidnapping and torturing 3 young women for sexual purposes at his Elephant Butte residence. Ray was given a 224-year jail term. It was his daughter's leniency that motivated the plea bargain. The surviving victims had given their okay according to the prosecutors. 2 counts of kidnapping and criminal sexual penetration were brought against Glenda Ray, Ray's daughter. She was sentenced to 30 months in prison and 5 years of probation after entering a plea of not guilty. When Marie Parker, 22, was killed in Elephant Butte in 1997, Dennis Roy Yancey, 27, entered a guilty plea in 1999. When Jessie Ray tricked Parker into being held captive in her father's trailer, Yancey admitted to having assisted her. According to Yancey, Marie Parker was subjected to torture, and Ray made him choke the woman till she passed away. According to the prosecution, no forensic evidence connected Marie Parker to the Rays was discovered. In addition, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit a crime, kidnapping, and evidence tampering were brought against Yancey. His term of imprisonment was 30 years. For killing Marie Parker, the Rays escaped prosecution. Yancey was granted parole in 2010 following an 11-year sentence, but arranging a place to live proved challenging. Yancey was accused of breaking his parole 3 months after he was freed in 2011. The remainder of his initial sentence was served when he was remanded to custody until 2021. An accomplice named Cindy Hendy was sentenced to 36 years in prison in 2000 for her involvement in the crimes. Hendy testified against Ray. In 2017, her parole hearing was set for that year. She served 2 years of her jail parole before being released on July 15, 2019. Ray was brought by state police to be questioned at the Lee County Correctional Facility in Hobbs, New Mexico, on May 28, 2002. Before being questioned, he suffered a heart attack and passed away. Together with Christine Barber, Cynthia Vigil later formed Street Safe New Mexico, a volunteer harm reduction group that assists vulnerable individuals living on the streets, including sex workers. Although Ray's crimes spanned nearly 50 years and concluded only with his arrest in 1999, authorities now believe he may have raped, tortured, and killed up to 60 women. Runaways, drug addicts, and sex workers were his primary targets. The number of women Ray murdered is unknown because he passed away before FBI agents could conduct a thorough interview with him. Thanks for your attention. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the channel or email at crimesabroad@outlook.com.